Hi, so I made some little videos over the past few months which don't belong in any particular category, and by themselves they weren't long enough for a whole video, so I kind of stored them up and I decided to stick them all in this video here in different sections. Of course, the description will have the paragraphs, steps in there that you can actually go to if you're interested in a particular part of it. There are also some links there for some other videos that are related to what we are discussing. And we have some updates on my lab here that I have made, and also I've noticed some things about USB 3.4, power delivery 3 point whatever on the USB side. And I also purchased yet another ATTEN soldering station to give me easy access to all of the different soldering iron tips that I have, 50 watts, 110, 130 watts, hot tweezers and what have you. I also bought some Microscope Gooseneck Light polarizers to see if they actually make a difference for lighting up the PCBs under the microscope. This was suggested by a viewer of my one of my other videos on the gooseneck, and of course these, as I said, the links will be in the description if you want to watch those as well. And well, without further ado, let's get on with it. And of course there will be also links in the paragraph marks in the video here that you can actually go to, and in the description if you're interested in any particular part of this, so you can skip right there. So without further ado, let's go and see what we have. Okay, so I thought I would do a little bit of a discussion here on what's going on with USB. I'm doing this in January 2025. The CES show in Las Vegas has just finished last week, and there is a state of flux with this USB power delivery option. And just last week I saw on CES at Ugreen, I think it's the company, they have released a 240 watt charger. And if you look at some of these cables that I have over here, I don't know if you can read it on that camera, I might have to switch to another one, but it has on there 240 watts. And the story on that is that also the USB organization has released new things for certification, and the cables that are certified will be marked with a special logo so that you know what you have. Here, for instance, is 140 gigabits per second, 240 watts. So that you know what you're getting, and on the other side there are some little logos for that it can do 240 watts, 8K, and these cables tend to have a chip in them that identifies them, that they can actually handle the higher voltages and higher currents and so on, and we'll have a look at that in a second. But some older cables, which I've had for a while. There is one here. This one, for instance, this one is actually says Blitzwolf, and it's got one of these little displays on there. They are not in that league, and most of the chargers that you can get nowadays, like this one here, I just recently purchased that, month or two ago, I think. This one is not up to 240 watts. It can only handle 140 watts. And you'll notice that more and more these chargers are reducing the number of USB-C ports. There's only 2 of them on the side there. And these are QC3, which is a Qualcomm standard originally, I believe, that is now actually on the way out, I believe. And we are looking forward to having just USB, or rather Type-C connectors. They shouldn't be called USB, they should be called Type-C connectors. And these sockets now are going to be ubiquitous, especially since in Europe they have determined that everything should have these Type-C sockets on them now, no more proprietary things, and even Apple had to change their evil ways. And there is a latest update, PD, I think it's just 3.1 or 3.2, whatever it is. They obviously can handle up to 240 watts, and the way that they do that, of course, is by going up to 48 volts on the port, and they can handle up to 5 amps, I think, and I think 48 volts at 5 amps or something, 240 watts, whatever. And that can therefore be used for charging laptops and devices like that. So changing to Type-C connectors is a good thing. Now, if I plug this thing over here, I think I showed that before. You can actually see when I first plug it in, it says 5 volts, and I can select 9 volts, 12 volts, and on this particular one, and this is what I'm talking about, there seems to be a disconnect about some of the chips that they put in these things. So on this is actually a little power adapter thing that I use for some of my projects. It's got a barrel connector on the other end. It won't actually go above a certain voltage. If I plug it into another device, let me change cameras here. This is another thing that I bought recently. This is a like a little docking hub thing, and it has ports here for charging. They're just for charging, and it has USB, and it is powered by a power supply, so it doesn't pull power from the device that you've plugged it into. But if I plug this into here, (9 volts, 12 volts, 15 volts, 20 volts. So that one does work. And of course, if it was a PD latest version of it, it would go up to 24 volts, I think it is, and 48 volts. So this thing is not up to that specification. But as you can see, it did not work on the ANKER charger. Another thing with this ANKER thing is that, let me change cameras again. There we go. Another thing with this ANKER charger is that it has problems with certain devices. Let me find a cable here. For instance, if I use the A-type socket on the side there, and I plug in something like this little light over here that needs charging. Where does it go? Goes that way. It sometimes doesn't work, but it is working this time. Maybe it's a different cable, so let me check that out. Yeah, I plug in this because you can't see it since the light is too bright. Let me turn off a few lights over here. You can see how it is flashing, that light. It tries to establish a charging cycle, but it is not working. Now, if I plug this is an old cable, and we'll have a look at that in a second, what the difference is from the other one. Let me pull that out a bit. Now, if I go back to the other camera again, a little bit dim, the other camera is much more sensitive anyway. If I plug it into there, it now will charge. So it's kind of like there is dysfunction going on right now between some devices and some cables that you got to be aware of. So let's have a look. So I think having one of these things here, I have shown that in another video. This is like a cable tester. So if I plug this one in, I'm going to put it in the one socket here and another socket. This is a, where is the USB? This is a micro USB. So you can see this cable has very few connections. It's got V bus, D minus, D plus, and ground. So basically this is a USB 2 cable. And that's all it is. It's just like a charging cable. Now the cable that did work is even worse. It just has V bus and ground, doesn't even have D1 and D plus. Which means that it can't even try to negotiate. So these devices, this thing is like a light that actually is it's got a sensor on there. So if it senses movement, the light comes on. And it's got a tiny little battery in there, and one of those Chinese charge chips, which is probably a fake one. And it is trying to obviously communicate with that, and it is coming back with something it doesn't like, and it tries to establish a charging cycle, and it never can. But when I plug this one in, it is just a charging only cable with no data. It works. So you see what I'm talking about. I mean, there's quite a lot of dysfunction now with certain devices and charging cables. So this cable here is only got 2 wires in it, plus 5 volts and ground. That's it. This is an old USB 2 cable. It has plus 5 volts and ground and D plus and D minus. It doesn't work on this one, but it works on the other little hub. And then you have these modern cables over here. This one over here, as I said, it's a USB 4 cable, which can handle up to 40 gigabytes per second and 240 watts. And if you plug those in to these cable testers, you'll find that every single connection is made, and that's why the whole thing lights up. And there's only 2 not lit up, but that's because if you turn it around, then it should light up if I reverse the cable. Because see, now it is lit up on the other ones. That's normal for a type C connector. So this cable therefore can handle the power, and it can handle the high speed that USB 4 will allow. Now, I've seen very few computers yet with USB 4 connections on it. Most of them are actually like these little mini computers. But that's what we're looking forward to in the future. So what I'm saying is too, when you buy these chargers and these hubs, we're still in a state of flux. There's not that many of them. They're only just starting to become on the market that can handle up to 240 watts. So, and when it comes to cables, you'll be surprised over, there's this, especially with Type C to Type C cables, there are a big variety of them that, now this is one, it's actually marked Blitzwolf. I think it came from AliExpress, a year or 2 ago. If I plug this one in, you might think it's the same as similar to the other one, but it's not. As you can see, there are quite a number of signals not there. So this is not a high-speed cable, and it can handle less power as well. And these new cables, now here is one, as I said, when they are certified now, you should be looking for these kind of logos on the cable so you know what you're getting. and the PCs too should be marked to match. But here is a cable that's a little bit older, and this is not a certified cable, but it actually says USB 4, 240 watts, and so on. If I plug this one in, this one is not actually, they haven't bothered to certify it with the, but it is also a proper USB 4 cable. So, but it is at least marked. And these cables too, you see there's a little symbol on there, and I believe that that means that they got a chip in them that allows advanced devices like the laptops and cell phones to identify the cable, that what the cable is capable of, and then it can actually go into turbo charge mode and stuff like that. Here's yet another one. This one is not marked at all. I don't know where it came from. But when I plug this in, it has a problem. C1 is not connected. And if I turn it around, it goes to the other side, CC2. So there is a wire missing there. So this is not actually probably also, well, it's not a USB 4 cable, but it should work okay, you know, for most applications. But there wouldn't be a chip in this thing either, and so this is an older technology, if you like, cable. So therefore, you really need to have one of these little cable testers so that you know what you're dealing with, and also be aware that a lot of these devices and the older charge chips that they put in these devices may or may not work with some of these. Now this here is actually this is the microphone that I'm using. I'm actually talking on right now. It's a lavalier, or whatever you pronounce it, microphone, and it has a charge case. And this one here, it'll work with all of them. I can plug in this older cable over here, and I can plug it in on this port over here, and as you can see, it will start charging, and it's actually 1.4 watts. It's almost fully charged, 94%. So that's why it's charging at a low rate. But this device obviously has genuine charge chip in there, and it recognizes the ports and so on, and it works just fine. So be aware of that. And if some of the older devices, like this one over here, this is a trackball that I use. If I plug this into a where's the cable I just used? If I plug that into any USB-C port on these charge devices, nothing happens. The little red light should come on. But now let me try it on this other little hub over here. Also nothing. So this one will not charge on any cable that's USB-C to USB-C, or a type C connector. But if I use a cable like this, it has an A-type connector on one end, and remember this one here, let me plug it back in again and see what the deal is. So this one here, it has ground, V-bus on both sides. And no data. So this is a charge only cable, but it has a USB-A socket on the one end there, and So I now plug it in. You see it is charging. The red light came on, and you may have noticed that yourself with certain devices that you plug them in and they won't work. So it's like the jungle out there right now, and I really couldn't live without this cable tester, because when something doesn't work, I can test the cable and see what's happening. Now, so what do we have? Let's go to display capture. So this thing over here, this is an ANKER PRIME Charger. I wouldn't recommend buying this right now. I would wait for, as I said, there's some new devices coming out, like the proper 240 watts. Now this one actually got me fooled. I wanted a 240 watt charger and it says 250 watts. But that is the total with all the sockets plugged in. And it can only handle up to 140 watts on only one of those ports. And the other ones are only 65 watts, and this one is 45 watts. And then the ones on the side here, I think they're 20 watts or something like that, the A-type ports. And the as you can see, there are some limitations there. In some cases, I think the firmware needs to be updated or something. I'll have to have a look if they have a firmware update feature on that thing. Okay, next up I have a replacement for my USB hub that I got plugged into my computer. It's getting old, sockets are getting wobbly on it. It's over 10 years old, I think, or about 10 years old, and I need an update. So I found this thing here. It wasn't too expensive. PULWTOP. Got 3 USB-C ports, 10 gigabits per second, and USB-A ports at 5 gigabytes a second, and it has a couple of charging ports, PD capable, so 24, 45 watts if you only plug one in, or 24 watts if you plug 2 in. That should do it, and it's got a fairly hefty power supply with it. And a tiny little manual. Specifications: 3 USB-C up to 10 gigabits, 4 USB-A up to 5 gigabits, 2 times USB-C PD output charging ports. Anyway, this one here, this one I do recommend. It is a nice 9-in-1 powered USB-C hub, but it is also it only handles up to 10 gigabits of data, not 20 or 40, and it can handle only up to 45 watts. But I've got that connected into my computer, and it has some dedicated PD, an older PD standard 45 watts just charging ports over there, and there are up to 10 gigabits per second USB-C, and USB the A ports can handle that. They are USB 3 point something, or rather 5 gigabits. So that is, oh, and what I like about it is it's got a switch on there. You can switch it on and off, and it's got like a little LED display showing you which devices are active and working when you plug them in. Okay, I got another shipment here of some ATTEN soldering equipment. I did a video on this ATTEN stuff before. I've got a couple of soldering stations, and I have a 50 watt, 130 watt and 150 watt soldering irons, and I just wanted to get another station so that I can have the tweezers and the soldering irons all connected, ready to go, so I don't have to disconnect one and connect another one and so on. So I've been really happy with this ATTEN stuff. I think it is really good. I think they're just as every bit as good as stuff from JBL and Weller and whoever else is selling soldering equipment. The American suppliers, of course, they will charge like wounded bulls, like $1,500, $2,000 for some of them. And ATTEN has these soldering stations, I think, are just as good. And just of late, they have made even better ones that are really high-level professional ones. They're just starting to appear, but they are more expensive. This one here, the ones that I have, you can actually buy them for less than $200. This one actually was exactly $200 with tax paid. And for me, that is good enough. The other ones that they have are going to be more expensive, and they got some high frequency ones and all sorts of stuff that if you're a professional person, you should look into that. Okay, so this is a ST1509 user guide. They are so easy to operate. I've never used the user guide. All right, here's the little thing that comes with it that you can use in order to ground yourself. The stand, and here is a soldering iron. Take some of that foam out. The soldering station is very heavy. A lead. Of course, the soldering station's got a big transformer in it, you see. None of this, and another spare soldering tip here. That's what it is. Okay. So that's all that's in the box. That's that. Power lead. We plug it in so that we can try it out. So at the back you just have a socket for the power lead, and there's a little ground socket over there where this thing plugs into if you want to use it. All right. Just checking if it's got some of that film on there you got to pull off, but it doesn't, so that's fine. Okay. So this, I ordered the one with the 130 watt soldering iron with it, and they have inserts that look like that. And that particular tip is not one of my favorites, but I have many others, as I'll show you in a second. So that goes in there. That. And this soldering stand over here. So the spare tips, you can put them in here, store them, and to remove the existing tips when they're hot, they have this, this is for the 50-watt one, and this is for the, so you can actually pull it out like that so you don't have to burn your hands. So we should be able to turn it on. Set for 350. And that little bar at the top there shows you how much power it's using to heat. So it's ready to go already. And you can actually select different temperatures. That's 200. You can program those, of course. 300, 400. And you can adjust the individual temperatures. Very nice. And it's got a little symbol there that says this is the real temperature of the actual soldering iron, and when you're setting it, of course, it says set, so you know that. Simple and neat. As part of the order also, I got all these tips over here. I figured that I would buy a whole bunch of them, 2 of each, because you never know, you know, they've got all these, if they ever discontinue these or the tips, then I've got a supply already. So what I have, these are the 150-watt tips. You see they have a large heavy duty. Let's move these out of the way. They have a larger heavy duty. Shed some more light on it. This is one of the 150-watt tips, and I like the chisel ones like that. I've got another spare one over here in this little case. Yeah, that's what it is. You can tell them because they have a chunky heating element on them. This is a newer one. It's actually a little bit smaller, but it's still 150 watts. So they must have optimized them or something. This one here I've had for a while now. So that is those. This one actually came with this set as an option. That's like one of these angled ones, and I've got a few more of those. Of course, over here I had some existing ones. Those over here. See, so I have several of those already, and these here are 130-watt ones, different tips, which that one is the same as the one that came with that new station actually. So these are the ones that I had, and I also have a bunch of these, a couple of those. These are 50-watt ones. I use those when I want to limit the power. They're different. They have these little like audio things on them, and here, see, I bought another spare one of those. So I have 2. And I have 130 watts. I like these sometimes, you know, for that kind of tip. And I got 2 of those. Yep, these are the same. I got 2 of those. I didn't have one of those. And I have, this is a 50-watt one. And did I have one of those already? No, I didn't. Oh, wait a minute, there's one in the soldering iron. Yes, I do. This one is actually in the soldering iron. And of course I've got another, this is a tip I use quite often. It's a 130-watt one that I like using. And yeah, so this is another 50-watt one. I wanted to get 2 of each, so to make sure that I had a supply. So that's 2 of those. And then I have another 150-watt one. I use those, for really heavy duty stuff like big ground planes or heavy cables. Here is a little, like a chisel thing for 50 watts. And here is another 50 watt. It's a cute little, like a little blade. And here I have another 130-watt one. This is the one that I'm currently using in that existing soldering iron. It's the same as this one. I use the 130-watt ones the most because that's the most efficient. And here is another 50-watt one, a very fine point on it. Sometimes I need that. So that's what we have. And I'm going to be sorting to these bits, and you can plug them all into the stand like that. And it's dirty. Okay. Yeah, so got another station. So now I can put a 50-watt and iron on one, 130-watt one, and the tweezers that I use quite often as well. These are the tweezers. I love these things. I have different types of tweezers, but for some reason these little fine ones always work. You can use them. Let me move that over. You can use them in that way, or sometimes you can use them like that because they are, angled, and they are 100 watts, so it's 50 watts per side, I think, if I remember correctly. And they always produce plenty of heat to pull components even off ground planes. Very nice. Oh, and I nearly forgot, I got this thing as well. I was intrigued by it, and I've actually tried it out once already, and it's going to be really useful. It actually goes into the soldering iron handle, and it's like a 150-watt deal. And this is actually like a little solder pot. I've already put some solder in there, as you can see, and you will put it in here like that, and then you put the little lid on the top and screw it down. And now this takes a bit longer to heat up, obviously, but still it only takes a minute or so. There we go. This side a bit more. And it holds the handle in place, so it's kind of safe. And I particularly like to use that for, some older components. You can put a bit of flux on there and just dip them in the solder, and also When you're joining wires, sometimes you can sort of twirl them together, bit of flux on there, and just dip them in there, and then they're soldered up. Much nicer than what you can do just with a soldering iron. So this is also a useful piece of equipment that they have available, and it just plugs into the soldering station, just like with the you know, the plug from the soldering handle. And you can set the temperature, of course, to whatever temperature it is. I put leaded solder in there, so I only have to set it to about 200 and something, and it melts nicely. Anyway, that's another bit that came with it, which I'm really kind of pleased with as well. I haven't seen that. I don't know if the other manufacturers have anything like that. I do have a large solder pot that I use sometimes. Which is this one over here. This one is relatively cheap. You can see them all over AliExpress. Works well, but it's big, so it takes quite a while for it to solder in there to melt and so on. And often I only need just, you know, a few little leads on a component or something to go in there, and this heats up much quicker. It's small and it's more convenient than to use this one. But this one, of course, I would use if I've got to got bigger jobs to do. Anyway, that's what we have. Okay, so here we are. I made up a bunch of movable shells here with wheels on it, which has become my soldering caddy and at this level here. And I now have, I have the third unit over here. I can now have a 50 watt soldering iron going, 130 to 150 watt soldering iron, and of course the 200 watt tweezers. I don't have to swap the cables anymore, which is a great convenience. And of course each one of those has a number of extra tips of different kinds that I can use. These are the 50 watt ones, and the 130 to 150 watt ones are there. And I also have the hot air station over here. That all of those have been performing very well, and I really recommend those ATTEN ones. I've noticed on the website they have more expensive ones now that are aimed at highly professional shops, and even these I think compete very well with the Weller, JBC and Hecko stations, most of which are double to 3 times the price. But the ones that they now have developed and are available, they're much more expensive. They're like $500 or something, the high frequency ones, and all sorts of special equipment that I don't need and hobbyists wouldn't need. And these are absolutely ideal. They have a transformer based power supply in them, so there's no potential switch mode power supply to go defunct like these guys here have. These are little kits that I built. These are the T12 ones. I still use those, and I tend to use those with these large spade bits like that. I can use 2 of them at the same time and heat things up on both sides and lift ICs off the PCBs and so on. Very convenient. This one here is that portable thing that is battery powered that I've done a review on. It also works reasonably well, and I also use that with some special bits to insert those little threaded inserts into 3D printed stuff. And at the top over here is actually the old workstation I used to have. I bought that many years ago, and it has a hot air gun on it, but one of these things here with the built-in fan, it is not good enough for some applications where you need lots of heat, but it does have a suction gun on it for sucking up the solder, and that's what I still use this one for. So that sits at the top here, and of course all the spare bits and some little tools and things that I use are all there. So that's it. That is how I use my soldering stations, and of course being on wheels I can roll it around to wherever I need to solder. So it's quite convenient that way. Okay, so I'll do a little bit of a update on this Gooseneck Light here. Did a review on that some time ago, but somebody recently said, oh, I got some polarizing filters for it and it works really good. And so I bought some, and they're over here. They're like little things that screw into the actual light over there. And if I switch cameras, you will see that they are polarizing filters. I can maybe turn that light off there. A bit better. If I rotate them, you'll see that when they are at at a certain angle, they don't let any more light through. So that's a sign of that they are truly polarizing filters. And so let's check this out. It says on the polarization 14 millimeters diameter. Now over here, this is my microscope that sits on an arm that I can move in place. So let us switch. Turn these lights on. Let's switch to the microscope, and I got a couple of little PCBs here, see if we can see anything on there that makes sense. Okay, so I've got a view here. I've got the ring light on right now, and you'll see already at the edges there's some glare. These ring lights are really not very useful, and if you put some liquid on there, let's put a drop there, you'll see how with the edges of the liquid, and with flux that's even worse. I just put some isopropyl alcohol on there. And note too that you can't read what it says on the chip there, and sometimes a little bit of the ring light actually works good, but it has some severe limitations. Now if we use, this is using the Gooseneck Light, and I'm going to, this is one of them is lighting it up, and then we aim the other one as well, because you need to, comes in at an angle, and now you will see that you can actually read what it says on the chip there, and you can't see the edges of the liquid. It is just tiny little bit, you see a few little spots. Now what actually happens, this is a polarizing filter. on one, and I put the other polarizing filter on, and I admit I have not seen a great deal of difference, but I suspected the angle of the light would be important. So the only thing is it makes it a little bit darker, but let's put the light a little bit closer so it is more brighter. And let's look fucking. Yes, so that is a lot better. There's still liquid on the board. You can just see a few little spots there when I move it. And of course you can read the writing on the chip very well. So look what else we can see. This is a some sort of, I guess like a little CPU or something like that. So if I turn that off and I turn the ring light back on, you get a completely different perspective. It has a bit of a fingerprint on there that you can see with the ring light. And you cannot see it with the gooseneck light. Let's clean it up there. Yeah, fingerprint's gone. This is again with the ring light. A lot of glare there around the edges already, and if you put liquid on there like flux or something, then sometimes it becomes like that. It makes it hard if you're wanting to get those tiny little components off there or something. And you just don't have that problem. You see the big difference with the gooseneck light and with the ring light. It's almost like it's a negative of the interesting how that works. Sometimes under some circumstances I will actually have turn on a little bit of the ring light. It's really hard. I've got it under the microscope and you can see the size of my finger. These little components here are tiny. There's some liquid on the bench there, so I put it on there. And you can see how the liquid distorts the thing, and there's like a light band around it. But with the gooseneck light, there is no such thing. That's why you use that. I use that almost exclusively. I don't use the ring light much at all. Under a few circumstances, depending on how they've engraved the numbers on the chips, you can actually read them slightly better using the ring light. This one over here, upside down Q49K2117. It's a little bit harder to read with the Gooseneck Light. So, as I said, sometimes I might, but you see, as soon as I turn the ring light on, some stuff goes up, but it's almost like you lose the depth perception. Of course, the Gooseneck Light, you can change the angle and sometimes give you a better perspective or whatever. In any case, I guess I don't know if I really have. I've had some really tricky ones. You see with the ring light, this is metal over here. You can't read the number on there very easily, but the Gooseneck Light is very clear, T623. Actually trying to find something that actually works better with the ring light, but I haven't really found anything on this. Those two little boards I got laying around here. I can reduce the light on that Gooseneck Light as well. Yeah, this is another one of those cases you can't read the number on the chip at all with the ring light. Usually you have to angle it away, then you can read it. But with that Gooseneck Light, it is very clear. Anyway, I don't know if I see a great deal of difference at this point with those polarizing lenses. I'm just taking them off over here. Other than I do have to turn the light down a little bit because they reduce the light output. So this is the listing for the polarizing filters, which I bought because somebody suggested them. And as you saw for the previous tests, I can see very little difference on my system, at least, using them or not, other than some reduced light output. And if I find a use case for them, maybe I'll find a PCB or some sort of situation where they actually are useful. But until then, I wouldn't recommend buying those because at $27 or $28, they're not that cheap, and I could not see any difference on my system, at least.